The sumo deadlift is one of the most technical lifts that we have in powerlifting, and it is much more technical than the conventional deadlift. It can create a higher ceiling for a bigger pull, but there's a lot of things that can go into it that make or break it, and the setup is without a doubt the most crucial part of the sumo deadlift. So we have to learn to create a good amount of tension in ourselves, our body, and the bar, get into a great starting position, and perform the lift flawlessly. There's lots of things that can happen in the setup of the sumo deadlift that can lead to a failed or missed lift. One of the big keys when approaching any warm-up in the deadlift from an empty bar all the way up to your lifetime PR, treat the setup the exact same all the time across the board. When discussing the technical aspects of the setup, we'll start from the ground and work our way up. The first is stance width. So from a leverage standpoint, you want to get the widest stance that you can get. However, that may be limited by your leverages or your limb lengths. The wider you can get the stance, the shorter your range of motion is going to be, which is the point of the sumo deadlift. But you don't want to get such a wide stance that it compromises either your hip mobility or some of your inner groin tendons and ligaments. So wide as possible is good, but if you have too much discomfort or you don't have the mobility to get into a properly leveraged starting position, then you need to bring the stance in a little bit. The bar is going to be closer to your shin at the start in a sumo deadlift than a conventional, because in a sumo deadlift, your shins are going to stay more vertical through most of the lift as opposed to a conventional deadlift. You're also going to want to point your toes out a little bit and not have them straight. The further out you can point your toes, the more it will open up your hips and create a shorter distance, a horizontal distance from the bar to your hips, which is the thing we're trying to overcome. So the more you point your toes out, the closer you can start with your hips to the bar. However, if you point your toes too far out, then you don't have good balance forward to backwards. So after we've established our position on the floor with our feet and our stance, we come up. The next thing is grip width. On the sumo deadlift, you want to have your hands as close as possible. That means they can be a little closer than shoulder width. However, same rule applies. We don't want our grip width so close that at the top we run into our body. If your arms are running into your body at the top, it's going to be hard to lock out. So you don't want them that narrow. You want them either directly below your shoulders or a little bit more narrow, as long as when you lock out, your arms are not running into your body. The more parallel and straight down your arms are to each other, the longer that their arms are going to act, and it's going to improve your range of motion and your leverages. So once you have your stance width established, your toe angle established, and your grip width established, now's the time to go down to the bar and grip it. Again, a nice solid firm grip. Flex the triceps so that the arms remain straight. At no point in the deadlift do you want to try and pull the bar, because that's when you tear a bicep. So flexing the tricep helps keep your arms straight, which is what you want to do. The only purpose your arms serve in the deadlift is to be hooks or hangers for the rest of your body. So again, get your grip it firmly. Over under is what you will see most commonly, depending if you're right or left-handed. One way might be more comfortable. In the advanced video, you can find a topic on hook grip, but other than that, over under is the way to go. Once everything is set from our stance to our grip, now is the time we wedge ourselves into the bar. So we get our grip and we create tremendous tension by pulling into the bar and pulling our hips down into a good leveraged position, into that lifter's wedge that we've talked about. The deadlift is unique because we don't have the chance to create a load or compress a spring on our body with the downward part of a lift like the squat or bench. So we have to create that tension ourselves, pulling into the bar, creating that tension in our body, compressing that spring by the tension that we're able to pull into the bar before we go. So everything is set, you get your grip, and you pull tension into the bar and leverage yourself down. You want to make sure on the sumo deadlift that you're driving your knees out. From the start position, you want the bar as close to your hips as you can get without having any sort of caving at the knees or inflexibility that's not going to allow you to get the bar close to your shins and maintain that the entire way up. We want to make sure we're doing the anti-shrug, where we are pushing our shoulder blades down, because that's going to create the rigidity in our upper back that will allow us to maintain a good, healthy, proper spine throughout this whole lift. We want to make sure we keep that neutral spine position, pull tremendous tension into the bar, and you want the weight to be on the heels and outside of your feet for the most part. You'll need some weight on the balls of your feet and the toes to maintain good balance, but you want to be driving the most of that weight and the most of the force through your heels, ankles, and straight up. Once everything is set and ready to go and you're in the perfect starting position, tension pulled into the bar, neutral spine, back locked in, if you were to let go of that bar right before you started to pull, you should fall backwards. Because what we're having to do in the deadlift is use our body weight and create tension and leverage into the bar to help get the bar going. The two most common mistakes I see in setting up for the sumo deadlift are the first being allowing the knees to cave in, which means you probably either need to scoot your stance in or work on your hip mobility. Because if your knees cave in, it's going to cause your quad to push out against your forearm, and it's going to force that bar out in front of you. The second mistake I see, it turns into somewhat of a wide conventional deadlift where the back is not in a proper position, the hips are really high, and it almost looks like a stiff leg sumo deadlift. To do the sumo deadlift properly, it needs to be precise and technical and not look like a wide conventional deadlift. So the sumo deadlift allows us to have a better advantage in our back position. We need to take advantage of that, not let the hips rise and not let the back be rounded or too high off the ground.